Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas and a member of the Armed Services Committee. Mr. Cotton, as always, sir, welcome back to the program. So let me get some things right here. You had a classified briefing. Was that this morning or yesterday? But you learned nothing. And I guess I'm going to ask, we keep discovering balloons or metal balloons, or I don't know what, we're just flying saucers. What is up with that? What's going on up there? Is this coming from the Chinese? Please tell us, Tom Cotton.
Well, Larry, it's good to be back on with you. We had our second classified all-senator briefing this morning. We had another one last Thursday. I have to say, unfortunately, we learned nothing in these briefings that I didn't already know as a member of the Intelligence or Armed Services Committee, or frankly, what your viewers can learn by watching your show or other programs or reading a newspaper. That's why I think it's so important that Joe Biden personally and directly address the American people. Justin Trudeau did that over the weekend for the people of Canada. I mean, surely we're not in a world where the American president is less decisive and assertive than Justin Trudeau, of all people. This is what we expect from presidents. You know, when Soviet Russia shot down a Korean Airlines flight in 1983, Ronald Reagan came out and addressed the American people in just a few days, explaining exactly what happened and why it happened and what we're going to do. Same thing with President Bush in 1990 when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. In these tense moments, we expect the president to come forward, explain his thinking, explain what we're doing. President Biden owes the American people an explanation.
You know, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called this global shame. He felt a delay in going after that first balloon that was discovered coming through Alaska and Montana and whatever. He called that a global shame. All right. It certainly didn't bring any great confidence to American and to Americans. How bad a story is this in your judgment?
Well, I think the failure to shoot down that first balloon was humiliating to President Biden and therefore dangerous for Americans. And I can tell you there, Larry, there's nothing more than meets the eye. China sent a spy balloon to fly across America. And President Biden and his administration had eyes on it over the Aleutians where they could have shot it down. They chose not to. And therefore, the Chinese spy balloon flew all across America. The end. Now, I think China is shocked that they actually got away with that, and it emboldens not only Chinese communists, but adversaries all around the world. This is just another in a long series of events since President Biden took office in which he has taken ambivalent, timid, weak, or appeasing policies that only encourage more provocations, more aggression, whether it's from the Chinese communists in East Asia or Russia and Ukraine or Iran in the Middle East. It's time that we start reestablishing our deterrence against these adversaries, making it clear that there's consequences for provoking America.
You know, Senator, let me just ask a couple questions. These are like informational clarification questions. First of all, does the United States have the capabilities of spotting these, whatever they are, balloons or metallic balloons or flying saucers? I don't know what they are. In other words, do we have the capabilities to spot them? And then related to that, Senator, in your judgment, to the best of your knowledge, maybe nobody knows for sure, that the second batch, not the ones that was finally shot down over South Carolina that was running for a week, but the second batch, the three, Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron, were those Chinese missiles or Chinese aerials or whatever? I'm going to just call them flying saucers. I kind of like that.
Well, on your first question, Larry, yes, we do. NORAD was established 65 years ago. Throughout its time, it's focused primarily on the threat of large ballistic missiles coming first from Russia and then China and North Korea. We detect those things in different ways, and we would detect slower, smaller moving aircraft like a balloon. But yes, we do. On the second point, we haven't gotten a clear answer from the administration. The public hasn't gotten it, and senators still haven't gotten it either. And that's why I think it's so important that Joe Biden explain his thinking. Obviously, he had a change in policy from the first balloon to these latter three objects. He needs to explain to the American people why he had that change in policy.
Do you think the other thing that's sort of hanging out there that I don't particularly understand, the Chinese are accusing the United States of sending something into China. I'm not exactly sure what. but they're saying we've been doing something similar. Maybe it's balloons or spheroids or aerial something or other. I like to think of them as flying saucers. I don't know what they are, but they say we're doing the same thing. Are we?
Well, Larry, this is the president who let a gang of 7th century savages beat us in Afghanistan. A president who had a chance to shoot down a Chinese spy balloon when it was flying over the Aleutians and then let it fly all across America. Do you really think Joe Biden would authorize that kind of provocative action towards China in the eyes of the Chinese communists? I don't think so.
Well, it's well put. I'm on your side on this. I just don't know who's in charge. I don't know who's in control of the U.S. government. I mean, I think that's a not insignificant issue here. I worked for a guy, Donald Trump, and whatever you thought of him, you knew he was in charge. I'm not so sure I could say the same thing about Mr. Biden or Ms. Harris or Blinken or any of these people. I mean, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you honest questions. You've been to a couple of briefings. I don't want to know anything I'm not supposed to know. Once upon a time, had those kinds of clearances. I'm just saying, what's going on here? My last point. What is going on here? How much intelligence did the Chinese take back? Where are these so-called metallic balloons? Who are they? Who's running them? What are we doing? Who's on first? What's on second? Who's telling the truth here? I don't think anybody knows. Literally don't think anybody knows.
Those are all very good questions, Larry. I've heard some version of those questions for a week now from Arkansans who are interested and curious, but also worried and concerned. This is why it's so important in moments like this for the president to brief the American people.
Yeah.
Not press secretaries, not anonymous sources, but the president on camera and directly. And if there are certain questions that we don't have answers to explain why we don't have those answers and what we're doing to get those answers. That's why I think President Biden owes the American people an explanation. In some of those examples I gave you, like the invasion of Kuwait when President Bush came out and briefed the American people, it's just 3 or 4 days afterwards. We're now going on almost 2 weeks. President Biden needs to speak to the American people.
You know, I'll just end this, and you're very kind to come on, and you're very helpful, telling us what you know and what you don't know. Our good friend, our mutual friend, Sarah Sanders, she said it's not left or right, it's the normal versus crazy. Honest to God, this is just part of the crazy. Anyway, Senator Tom Cotton, we appreciate your time very much, sir.
Thank you, Larry.
Anytime.